On behalf of Rovini College of Engineering and Technology, myself, Justin Leo, Assistant Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, welcome you all for all the basic civil and mechanical engineering course. And the course code is B8252, Regulation 2017. So here, in this basic civil and mechanical engineering course, we'll be studying about the internal combustion engines and power plants of 4th unit. And in this, we'll be studying about the introduction to internal combustion engines. So introduction to internal combustion engines. This is the syllabus which we have for this 4th unit of internal combustion engines and power plants. So the main objectives are to impart basic knowledge on civil and mechanical engineering, to familiarize the materials and measurements used in civil engineering, to provide the exposures on fundamental elements of civil engineering structures, and finally to enable the students to distinguish the components, working principle of power plant units, internal combustion engines, and refrigeration and air conditioning system. So here in syllabus, we will be studying about the classification of power plants, internal combustion engines as automobile power plant, and the working principle of petrol and diesel engines, the 4-stroke and 2-stroke cycles, comparisons of 4-stroke and 2-stroke engines, working principles of steam, gas, diesel, hydroelectric and nuclear power plants, working principles of boilers, turbines, reciprocating pumps, single acting and double acting, and centrifugal pumps. So these are all the reference books you have for this basic civil and mechanical engineering, and these are all the course outcomes. And classification of heat engines. So normally heat engines are classified as internal combustion engines and external combustion engines. So before that, you should know what is heat engine. So heat engine is a machine that converts heat energy supplied to it into a mechanical work. So heat energy is supplied to the engine by burning of the fuel. So this is what a heat engine is. And heat engines can be classified into two types, that is internal combustion engines, and it's also called as IC engines. And here the combustion of fuel takes place inside the engine cylinder. For example, diesel engines, petrol engines, and gas engines. And coming to the external combustion engine, that is EC engines, the combustion of fuel takes place normally outside the working cylinder. And the examples are steam engines and steam turbines. So this is working of internal combustion engine, and classification of IC engines. So IC engines are classified into the following types, like based on the cycles of operations. So number of strokes per cycle. So you call as 2-stroke cycle engines, and 4-stroke cycle engines. And the second engines are classified as based on the thermodynamic cycle or method of heat addition. So you have 3 classifications as Otto cycle engines, where the combustion takes place at constant volume, and diesel cycle engines, where the combustions take place at constant pressure, and semi-diesel engines, where the dual combustion engines. And based on the fuel use, you can classify the IC engines as petrol engines, diesel engines, and gas engines. And the fourth is ignition method. So when you use a spark ignition, it is called spark ignition engine. And when the ignition is due to compression of air, you call it as compression ignition engine. And based on the cooling system, it is air-cooled engines, and if it is cooled by water, as in two-wheeler, you will call it as water-cooled engines. And based on the valve's location, you call it as L-head engine, T-head engine, I-head engine, F-fed engine. So these are all the IC engine terminology. These are all the standard terms used in IC engines. The first is bore. That is the inside diameter of the cylinder is termed as the bore. And TDC, that is the top dead center, that is the extreme position when the piston is reached at the top of the cylinder in vertical engine. So it is called as top dead center. And bottom dead center is the extreme position the piston would reach at the bottom of the cylinder in the vertical engine. It's called the bottom dead center. And the stroke. So stroke is the nominal distance traveled by the piston inside the cylinder between this TDC and BDC. And the compression ratio. Compression ratio is the ratio of maximum cylinder volume to the clearance volume. And the cylinder volume, it is the summation of swept volume and clearance volume. And swept volume, it is nothing but the volume of the space generated by the movement of the piston from one dead center to another dead center. So that is the swept volume. And clearance volume, it is nothing but the space in the cylinder when the piston is at the top dead center. So with this we come to an end to this introduction part of an IC engines. So thank you and have a great